people live up to 80, 85 when they're lucky, and rarely they go above the 100 mark.
Who is John? He's a serial entrepreneur, a biohacker, voted top 30 most disruptive entrepreneurs, top 20 business influencers, top 10 biohacking influencers. I actually know him from the Biohackers magazine.
True question that we need to have is why? Why would you live longer? Just for your ego? And how do you want to live longer? You know how many people forget that they never raise their arms up above their head? And that's a simple thing that you should do every morning when you wake up.
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better. Well, actually, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms. You've got some exciting news that's just happening with Biohacker magazine. Tell me a little bit about that.
So Biohackers magazine, here we go. Biohackers magazine was acquired on Friday by the biggest project of my life that is called Lifespanning Media Corp. It's a giant media company backed by VC and private equity. And we're operating across 6 platforms to help people to live longer, better, and fitter. So having Biohackers magazine part of that is awesome, especially for the future of that magazine that is going to turn into totally immersive magazine. You're not going to read anymore. You're going to be immersed in the story you read, or actually you live, not read.
That sounds awesome. I want to get to Lifespanning in a second. How did you start Biohacking magazine? And then we'll get to the next question.
Okay, so Biohacker magazine started actually in Germany in 2017. For 2 years was there and was doing nothing. 2019, 2 guys, Dallas McLean, that is our chief editor today, and Arjun Chan, that is our marketing director, were in the group there. And the guys in Germany just decided to drop the ball and say, okay, enough with this magazine. We're not ramping up. So Dallas and Arjun brought the magazine to America. For 2 years, they've been struggling. They interviewed me once and they go like, hey, Jean, we need your help. You have this vision of things that were lacking in the magazine. And I go like, well, I'm busy. I'm already doing tons of stuff, but I'll think about it. And they came back to the point that January 21, I said, okay, guys, I'll jump in the company. I'll take share. And I want to have the majority of it. So I took over the control of the company and brought the company to new levels with publication every month, having people on cover, websites and everything. But my next dream was to get the magazine into the metaverse and having people like today, people are fascinated by everything that is like immersive. So I think it's time for us to bring the magazine into an immersive world where you have information about how to optimize your life, but you are capable of being totally into it, not just reading that, and put it in perspective. In terms of memorizing, it's the best thing that can happen because you're living the situation. You're not just reading it. We have the visual memory, we have the auditive memory, but having more senses into the experience will definitely bring a different stage of learning that we want to offer the people with. And this is...
And I'm sure there's some great data about that kind of immersive experience and how much more you can learn. The title of this summit is Uncovering the Secrets of Longevity. I can certainly recommend the Biohacking magazine to help people kind of further their education in this arena. Now, you said it got bought out by Lifespanning or merged into Lifespanning. To you, and you and I have had a conversation about it, what does Lifespanning mean to you and why is it important?
Well, Lifespanning, here's the thing. Biohacking was one of the segments that was covering longevity in general. Then you have the extreme people that are even ready to freeze their body to keep surviving over time. And those are like in the longevity space as well. And you have the scientific community where I'm coming from. I'm a scientist like you are. And I've always felt that, first of all, biohacking is perceived as a cult in many aspects. You go to certain country and people are just like, biohacking? Are you hacking any computer system in a hospital? And then you have the other extreme. You go like, oh, you're putting chips in your head and magnet on your fingers. Well, biohacking, the way that Biohackers magazine was and is not that. It's like mainly longevity. And then you have the scientific community that is always fighting against whatever is coming from biohacking by saying you cannot hack your biology, which in fact it could be true, but you can optimize your biology. So what you define by hacking or improvement is it's your own interpretation. And on the extreme, as I said, you had the longevity extremist, I would say, radical longevity expert there. So my dream was like, how can we get this all together and make this world understand that longevity is for everyone, not just for the elite that has money, but everyone can implement longevity in his life and can live longer, because we are programmed as human to live up to 230, some things like that. That's our mechanism in biology. And before we get to the senescence of our cell, this is how we're supposed to. Unfortunately, most people live up to 80, 85 when they're lucky, and rarely they go above the 100 marks. So I was thinking and looking at that, and I said, it's all about lifespan and health. And then lifespanning came to my mind, and I said, that is a crazy, sexy word. I looked around, and it didn't exist. So what I've said, and done, I go like, okay, I'm going to register that, make a trademark out of it, then set up a startup and have my own network of 27 years of entrepreneurship involved. And I'm going to make the biggest company in the world that talks about longevity. Lifespanning Media Corp was born that way. So Lifespanning Media Corp, since I had interest in Biohackers magazine before, it was like obvious that Biohackers magazine had to be part of Lifespanning Media Corp.
Man, and that's exactly why I wanted to have you as one of the speakers on this summit, because you're really have your pulse on kind of everything that's new, that's happening related to longevity, to lifespanning. In that position at Biohackers magazine, Biohacking magazine, you have come across, I know, right, because I've done some research, a lot of longevity experts. I was hoping you could share maybe a couple of surprise longevity experts. I think a lot of people are familiar with, Dave Asprey as a biohacker. They're familiar with David Sinclair. We'll stay with the Daves for a second in lifespan. And there's a lot of others that are kind of the main, what we might call mainstream, and not necessarily a mainstream ideology, but the mainstream leaders there. Name a couple of them that maybe people haven't heard of that you think they should have heard of, and then also maybe touch on with like what it is about what they're doing that you really like.
Thanks for asking this question. I think that one of the guy that surprised me the most in the past year was Christian from Stemregen. Christian Drapeau is from Quebec, so you have to say Drapeau Frenchy way. It's interesting to see that this guy, actually I didn't discover him, but Dallas McLean, our chief editor, came to me and goes like, you have to meet with the Christian. He's right into what you preach. He's scientifically backed up by so many stuff, and he's right into the domain of extending lives and life optimization. I go like, oh, how come? So I met Christian. And actually, Christian is really into what longevity is. It's about stem cell. The more you regenerate your stem cell naturally, because it's not injecting anything, it has a supplement that actually create more stem cell release in your body than the normal. So it's a stem cell optimizer, I would say. And when you talk to the guy, you really see that this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows what can make people live better, longer, fitter, healthier, name it. And in terms of longevity, when you talk about longevity in general, some people just forget that it's not about just living longer. It's having a brain for the rest of your life and having your limbs to be able to move. Otherwise, there is no longevity at all. It's just like being some sort of a plant that can stand for years and years. That's one. The second biggest surprise in my life, and I don't know if she's not known, but she's quite known actually, Dr. Amy Killen. Fantastic friend. She became a friend after. I met her like 2 years ago at the Dave's Asprey conference as well. But she's into longevity in different angles. She just came up with a great project, Upbox, the human optimization project. It's a small pouch with 5 pills inside, 19 ingredients selected, and especially selected for living longer and better, like aging in the proper way. So they went to see every single marker that were related to aging, and they came back on the supplementation with the right ingredient that you need to extend your life properly, your memory, your capacity in general. So those are the two that are really creating a new movement in this industry. But of course, longevity is large. There are so many people in this field, and without not leaving the respect to everyone, I think that everyone contributes to this world in a way or the other.
Well, I think that's absolutely true, right? There's lots of people who are in the longevity space and the biohacking space having a significant impact. And just for those to be the first two that pop off is really cool. Maybe you could give me an introduction to Amy. That would be great. I'd love to include her in this. And I'm already, Christian is already on board. I'm just trying to schedule a time with him. And so I'm excited to connect with him too on both the kind of longevity front and the geeky scientist front. So those are some great examples. Hey, so my next question, there's so many exciting technological advancements in longevity, from printed organs to embedded neural links to gene modification. By the way, that you mentioned earlier that the medical community is like, oh, biohacking, you can't do that. I don't understand how anything could not be more biohacking than gene editing. I feel like at least that's possible, and that is absolutely biohacking, but maybe they've got a different definition. But anyway, printed organs, embedded neural links, gene modification, these are posed to disrupt natural human evolution. And one of my goals of this summit is to have conversations about, really what does this imply, and where do you think we should draw the line with these technologies and how these technologies might disrupt natural evolutionary biology?
Wow, that's a great question. Okay, drawing a line, I think that we need to draw a line on some things that we haven't mastered yet. Conscience. So whatever we do to modify our body in a way or the other has to be aligned with the fact that you are able to understand what is happening, to live in the present moment and build that memory out of it. So you can have all the implants that you want, new organs. To what extent are you still going to be human if you have Kevlar arm, printed, whatever, bones and things like that? This doesn't bother me as long as it helps people to live longer. We already do like hips surgery that are like not made of bone, so no difference there. Playing with the genetics to change what we're meant to be when we were born is controversial, but I'm putting back and I'm throwing that right away. Darwinism is exactly the same process in a longer period of time. So if you accelerate the Darwinism, the evolution of the species, and you offer people to speed up the process of adapting their genes to live longer and better, I'm not against that either. So do we really need to draw a line except on the conscience? No. It's free for all.
That's really, that's really interesting. I guess, and maybe you can speak to this. So some of the potential caveats are like, if you make the argument that, Darwinian evolution was going to get us to this point somehow, then if we're just going to use CRISPR technology, then I guess, how do we figure out, like, how do we agree that Darwinism was going to get us there, that evolution was going to get us there? Have you thought about that at all?
Well, the track of history shows that our genes are modified. And matter of fact, obesity was not existing 2,000 years ago. We created it. I don't know if it's a great evolution of the species, but it exists today.
I think we can agree it's not good.
So we have track record showing us, and long data on that, showing us that we're changing, we're evolving, we're modifying slowly but surely, like our jaws, our teeth are less numerous than they were before. And we see this trend now. Put artificial intelligence, machine learning into this process. This tool brings us the biggest advantage that we can't even dream about. Like, we have been analyzing paper to say, oh, Darwinism is the evolution of the species. We're modifying our genes to get slowly that, and we think that we're going to lose 2 more teeth in the future because it's the trend. Now, if I use machine learning and I put the data on and artificial intelligence there, I can get the result that is going to take 20 years to make the calculation manually or like with soft computer in a time frame that is less than a year, and then adapt our technology or science to that and say, oh, okay, we're getting there. Now we have the science that can help us to modify certain structure of our body or bones or genes and get us there in a different way. Why not? We're not wrong there. And it's not constant. There is no polemic to have, or I don't know.
You are enjoying, well, at least I hope you're enjoying, the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow, and make sure you share. But don't be that annoying guy, whatever you do. Don't share it with people who aren't actually interested in living beyond the norms. I think, so there are a couple things that popped to my mind, which would be very interesting to even understand if they could be addressed, right? We're running this great experiment as it relates to cell phones, right? Like this social media and this kind of doom scrolling that everybody admits to happening to them at some point. Some have managed to uninstall the software. Others use the excuse of needing to be on social media to keep it on their phone. I would be guilty of that. How great it would be to have some sort of evolutionary step, because you can see that it might be an advantage to not have the dopamine kick in as much now, right? Like we're wired, that's born out of our innate desire for stories, because from stories we learn how to interact with people. We learn how to thrive in a society that we may live in. And so we're hardwired to appreciate the knowledge that comes from these stories. Maybe there are some, I think you get into really interesting debates if they're like, okay, so we have this genetic modification so that stories don't interest you as much. Now, like, I don't know, that's just something that pops into my head. I don't know if anything kind of response pops into your head.
Well, that's one part, social media and all these things, and as you said, but let's put it in perspective. Sooner or later, we're going to have those meetings in the virtual world. Now we're having this meeting on a camera, but we're going to be on a virtual world in the metaverse, and your hologram will talk to my hologram. And the feeling will be exactly the same that we are face to face, but even more, like we're going to even more getting the feeling of being present in the same room. Are we? No. And our conscience will register that as a moment that we are, but we're fundamentally not present in that moment. And it's the same. So now, I'll put that as an example for the future. Scrolling and the rush of neurotransmitter that you can have from that, while we're all dependent to that today. I don't know. I don't think that we're going in the wrong direction. I think that the whole world is going in the right direction. The longevity space, which we are in today to talk about, is probably the one that is the most open-minded in terms of one simple question. What can help us to live better and longer? So is it technology? Is it gene editing? Is it biology? Is it neuroscience? Is it psychology? It's probably psychology, to my opinion. But we're open enough to say we need all these together to help people to live longer and better. But the true question that we need to have is why? Why would you live longer? Just for your ego? And how do you want to live longer? Do you want to live longer, going back to what I was starting with, in the metaverse as an artificial created human? Or do you want to live in the real world? And the debate will be, what is the real world? Where do we stand? Where do we live? Do we live here in the present moment, touching, or do we live in something that is virtual or not? And longevity is part of that, is totally integrated in this overall concept of building up the future.
Yeah, I think there's two paths, right? So one could be very much a digital path where we may eventually have consciousness and be in a device, which Elon Musk is notorious for saying we're already there.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're currently experiencing. And I think that's a fascinating concept. And then the other one is just physically living longer, only really worth doing if you have the same mental capacity that you have today and you have the same physical capacity that you have today. And so that's what we're almost actually getting to a red pill, blue pill kind of crossroads, which is not what I would expected, and absolutely fascinating. All right, well let's move on. So we've got these interventions. They're coming. They're on our way. You and I have been to Biohacking Conference. A lot of these interventions are not cheap, right? They're not inexpensive. Some of them are pretty expensive. If you think about access to a hyperbaric chamber, which has some great data, that's a massive chunk of steel with technology to make sure you don't die in it, right? Like to fully oxygenate your body. What do you think about the ethical responsibility of keeping parity, right? To make sure that the risks of a socioeconomic divide for longevity does not get out of whack. It seems, anybody who is in a position to afford it now is like, well, I want that. And then there's got to be another group. And you've already alluded to this being something that's on your plate of people who's like, well, but this has to carry everyone. Talk to me a little bit about your thought process there.
I'm fortunate enough to be on the side of the rich people of this planet, but I'm totally against the fact that longevity is exclusively designed for rich people. I don't get that. It's like asking the question, who has the right to live? Who are we to choose? Money? Is it money that has the right to choose if you live longer than others or not? I don't think that money should be the driving factor for that. I think that longevity should be accessible to everyone at no cost most of the time. And whatever the color, the nature, the orientation, the mindset, the age you have, it should be there, because longevity starts from natural thing to implement in your life that we are just lacking or stupidly not doing right. So my goal is definitely to make longevity accessible to everyone, wherever they are, whoever they are, and in a simple way, in a natural way. Of course, technology will still exist, and you gave a fantastic example, like hyperbaric chamber. Of course, there's a cost associated with building those things. It's a business, and I'm not saying that I'm going to give an hyperbaric chamber to everyone. It's not the goal of my mission. but I think that we should.
Where do you store it?
If you have a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that, but we can make like the health as a priority for everyone, and that should be coming from the government first. Like, instead of making your job the priority, make your health the priority. Make you every morning you wake up, make your health the first thing that you have to consider, because without that, you don't have any family, you don't have any job, and you don't have any future, and you don't have any longevity. So start by setting the standard and the foundation of your life. Biohacking was right for that. Was in the wrong place for that, actually. I love the biohacking community, but with all due respect, it's really for rich people. Biohacking is costly, it's expensive. People are spending like thousands of dollars in pills, where people with the money that some others are spending in pills could probably feed their family for the whole months. And I'm not counting about stem cell injection or hyperbaric chambers and all these tools. So I don't know, this is my revolutionary mindset. I'm coming from the punk generation, and I stayed in that even as an entrepreneur. I think that humanity is beautiful in general, and everyone deserves to have the chance to get there in good shape, as simple as that. Because think about it, what improves your life most of the time is simple thing, and it starts from your food. If we stop feeding people with those freaking hamburgers and fries and stuff like that we really discipline people, or we cut the companies that are behind that, changing the system, gonna go to jail.
It's literally revolutionary what you're saying. And at the same point, I mean, here, my example is I regularly ask my wife not to bring those foods into the house, right? Awesome. If we go back to this evolutionary wiring, we're wired like that's why they're designed that way, so that we're so drawn to them, we continue to consume them. And so you've got to be careful. And maybe the thing is to cut out from under the knees. I want, as you were describing like the current state, and biohacking is expensive. I think some of it has parallels with, how Elon Musk has brought the electric vehicle to market, right? He started with the most expensive, because they were never going to be able to make a cheap car right out of the gate, right? So you got this most expensive, you generate the revenue so that you can invest in the next technology. Now, he had as a mission from the beginning to get this to the masses, people, yeah. Right? And I think, maybe there's a great place for you to be advocating, hey, you technology companies that are doing some amazing biohacking work, remember that ultimately this should be available to the masses, and what is that game plan? And I think that's a great piece of it.
I think, just to conclude on that, but how can we in this world imagine that even the food that is supplied in our market and supermarket is not enough in terms of minerals and components to feed you properly as we were designed for, and we need supplements? This is insane. Shouldn't be that way. We should have access to real food and have all the elements without taking any supplements, just by eating, and starting to get a better life just by that.
Yeah, no, I think very much. Although if you think about how people were distributed around the world, they actually have access to different things around the world. And so one of the things that biohacking brings is, this blue zone diet. Hey, like that seems to be optimal. Well, let's not just say diet, the lifestyle, right, seems to be optimal. So like spread that around. And so there are things that you can get access to that now, like maybe even in Christian's kind of stem cell formula, I know it's got lots of different herbs that he's done the research on. Maybe those herbs, and I haven't done the research, but maybe those herbs are from places that are desperate, right? Where really a typical person in the Americas or in Europe wouldn't have gotten those as we were evolving. And so we're really doing some really cool optimization
Yeah,
stuff.
but we
All right.
sorry, we need to bear in mind some things that, for example, you were born in America and you were not designed to eat raw fish for the rest of your life, or you're not designed to eat Mexican food for the rest of your life. So the species in the world have been evolving in a certain way, and adapting their genetics to the world they've been living in. And one of my friends was always saying, "I eat local." And I mean, like, you buy local, and I go, no, I eat local. I eat the things that people from the world, my space where I live and I grew, were eating for generation and generation, because my gut microbiome is designed for that. Not stupid enough, I think. It's a good point. So we cannot force the rest of the world to have one type of diet. That will not work either. It's not going to promote longevity. But the supplement, like you said, that are coming from mushroom adaptogens from everywhere, and some other components coming from goji and all these plants. Yeah, those are small, tiny things that will help human living longer, but don't shift over completely the nutrition that they have been educated and raised with for generation right away, and say, oh, you need to eat like people from Okinawa.
Yeah. If your genes didn't develop in Okinawa, then that may be extremely bad advice. And there's a lot of data that suggests a diet that's good for one is not good for the other. Just you look at these continuous glucose monitors are coming up, and people are like, yeah, I can eat grapes and there's no blood sugar spike, and grapes tend to be one of the higher blood sugar spikers of the fruit world. Yeah, so you really do have to have this customization. All right, so we're kind of coming to a close here. I gotta pick your brain. What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindset? Let's call them shortcuts, because everybody likes shortcuts, to longevity and a long health span that you can share?
Number 1, meditation, for sure. Yeah, it's my favorite one. I think that it comes down to always this sentence that I love to repeat: is live in the moment. Try to find your ikigai, in a way. Like, meditation helps you to get there. It puts you in peace and educates you enough to understand that you're not living in the past and you're not stressing out for the future because you're living in the present. That's one. My second favorite is walk. This is not expensive. It's a free act. Just move your butt and walk, especially when you finish a meal. Take 20-minute walk, 10-minute walk, whatever, 5-minute walk, but walk. Don't finish your meal and go on your couch and stay there watching Netflix for the rest of the evening, for example. Those are definitely my 2 favorites.
Yeah, I think that, and I think some people tend to even if they're going through some particular challenge, that they'll fall off of the walking, and I think it's actually more important to walk if you've got some health challenge or whatever. Obviously, consult with a physician. But if it's even feasible, then do it. And if it's walking back and forth to the front door, like get up and
even
move.
On your balcony, if you have a balcony, or in your room, but walk, move, don't sit. Even if you work, take a standing desk. And the third one is exercise. How much I love exercise, but I'm not asking people to do a violent exercise. I'm just asking people to do some movements. Just move your body. Just
walk.
You know how many people forget that they never raise their arms up above their head?
Oh, yeah.
That's a simple thing that you should do every morning when you wake up.
Get that blood flowing. Arms over your head. I like that's great. Great. Now, what in the near future are you excited about? And then I want to let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
I'm excited about life in general. This is like, in the near future, I don't have any project for like projection for 3-5 years like everybody tries to do. I try to live in the moment, but I'm an happy person. I'm happy every day because every day is a gift, and I just want to make this world better. And I think life planning, it's my biggest mission for that. And where they can find me, just if they Google my name, I think I pop up everywhere.
I'll spell that. That's last name is Fallacara, and it's John, Jean. And you can find him. Is there anything preferred? Is there like an Instagram account?
My Instagram is pretty fun. You can see all these things about neuroscience and calisthenics and sport. It's Cyborg Gains, like a cyborg, CYBORG, and Gains, GAINZ at the end, Z for some.
Z, yeah. We hinted that we met in an unusual way. We actually met, and Jean was doing headstands outside of the biohacking conference. So you'll get to see some of that fun and frivolity and great information there. Jean, I want to say thank you so much for connecting with me, and you've actually put me in contact with some people. So I really appreciate that. And until the next time, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.